my African dream today is with the lovely Claire. But you know, an African dream is about you, the African, or somebody who's been touched by our amazing continent. You know, there are almost 1.5 billion people in Africa now, and you might be interested to know that 60% of the population is under 25. It is the youngest continent, and therefore, you know, something that Nelson Mandela said many years ago is that education is the most powerful weapon we can use to change the world. And Claire of Gaga, she's the director of Gaga, which is Goodwill and Growth for Africa, does a lot of work with young people and specifically in projects related to education. So welcome, Claire. It's lovely to chat.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here. Thank you.
So tell us about these lovely projects that you're doing in Africa.
Absolutely. Yeah, delighted to. So Goodwill and Growth for Africa actually is a small international development charity based here in the UK in Stratford-upon-Avon. We've just turned 18 actually.
Ooh.
So yeah.
Now
so
you're an adult.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been around for quite a long time. And over those years, it has developed and grown as you would, sort of hope and expect it to. And at the moment, we are focused on projects in South Africa, primarily in KwaZulu-Natal, and we also have one educational project in Tanzania. But over the years that Gaga has been in existence, we've also worked in Sierra Leone and Swaziland, or Eswatini. So, it's we sort of move from place to place depending upon the project. With our educational projects, we have a scholarship program that we run in South Africa for students who would otherwise be unable to access further or higher education. And this is primarily because they are either orphaned and therefore have nobody to guarantee their student loan, or they live in very, very difficult circumstances from a family who really can't afford for them to access higher education. So what we do is we try to enable the brighter students to achieve their dreams, because we really do believe that education changes people and people change their world. And that's really something that is right at the heart of what we try to do. We also work at the other end of the spectrum with early childhood development projects. And just love some of the ECD projects that we've supported over the years. Some are just small creches that have no more than 20-25 children in, and we've also been involved with some of the sort of slightly larger projects which have maybe 400 or 500 children, but we just have a small part to play in what they do.
Well, my late mother was a midwife. So when you mentioned that you're doing this amazing midwifery project in West Africa, I think that is fantastic. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, now this was a delight. This was something that I came across when I was doing a talk to a group of ladies who get together twice a year and have a big breakfast. There's about 60 ladies, and I'd been invited to speak about Goodwill and Growth for Africa. And afterwards, as I was sat down, I sat next to a lady, and she was telling me about something that she does. She is a midwife, and she is involved with an organisation called the African Maternity Link. And she was explaining to me that for a number of years, she and her colleagues had been travelling to Sierra Leone to a town called Bo, or city in fact called Bo, which is the largest city in the Eastern Province. And what they do is they share information with the midwives who are working there about different things that they've learned over the year, different techniques. And actually it's a mutual sharing as well, because a lot of the women in Bo see very different sort of issues with midwifery and with birth than perhaps people do in the UK. So it's definitely very much a two-way sharing. Anyway, she was explaining to me that this particular clinic had been picked out by the government to receive funding to develop the midwifery services, and in particular to have a new delivery room, two suites actually, delivery suites. But the problem was that all of the money had been spent and there was no money forthcoming, but it actually had no water supply. Now they had a well outside, but it was a well with a hand pump, and the hand pump had broken. So they had a bathroom, but they had no way of getting the water from the well into the bathroom, so that the expectant mums could, you know, have a shower before they gave birth, and obviously after, and of course, you know, as anybody who's had a baby knows, water is really quite a big part of the process. So we were able to secure funding with the support of our local Rotary Club to get sufficient funding to be able to sink a submersible pump into the well, build a water tower, and connect it all up. And also, we were also able to have an additional bit of the project, which was to dig a placenta pit, so that the placentas could be disposed of in a hygienic and safe way. Because of course, even with Ebola still, you know, it's some years ago, but there are very strict guidelines as to how things like that need to be disposed of. So we were able to do both of those things. And the other great thing about it was that we had some support from the University of Warwick, their Department of Humanitarian Engineering. They were looking for different projects for postgraduate students to get involved with. So one of their students actually did the engineering assessment for us as our part of our due diligence, to make sure that the money that we were spending was being spent in a way that would deliver the correct water pressure for the you know, for the water, the pump, that it would be resilient enough, and lots of other stuff that is a bit beyond me. But it was fabulous to collaborate with the university on that.
I think what's important about that is that in almost all capacity and all positions or jobs that we're in, there is something that we can do, whether it's a mentoring program, or we can help support people, or if we need some experience in a certain area, then maybe, you know, offer our services to community groups and charities that types of things that you do, which then has an impact, a huge impact, an absolutely massive impact. And I think that's something that maybe we can all think about. How can we do that in our lives? You know, a lot of your work happens in, well, we know that it's education, but we also know that it's difficult to learn when we have an empty tummy. And I know that you also do a lot of work in this area. So what are the kinds of things that you've done in food security?
Yeah, so we have a very close association with a fabulous project which is based in the Valley of 1,000 Hills, which is behind me. Picture of it, picture of the valley behind me, and that project has, again, it's been around for a long time, and it has grown from what was initially effectively a feeding scheme in response to massive hunger in the late 80s. Due to HIV/AIDS and various other economic conditions in South Africa at the time. And that has grown to become 1,000 Hills Community Helpers, which is a very well-known project in South Africa. But we have been involved with it for a number of years, supporting the work that they do. They have a primary health clinic, which has different days for different things. So a day for geriatrics, for the elderly people, a baby clinic, a TB clinic, and of course now they're responding to the COVID-19 crisis. But a very big piece of what they also do is a feeding scheme. And they have a massive kitchen and a great staff of local community volunteers who come in every day and serve in the region of about 1,500 to 2,000 hot meals a day.
Wow.
This is just amazing. Everybody who comes to the clinic can have a meal. The children from the local nearby primary school and secondary school can come after school for something to eat. And also this is the project that has around about 350 to 400 preschoolers and reception class children, and they all get food as well as what you can imagine is quite a big staff of people. Wow. Now, last year, they started their Meals on Wheels. So they had a fantastic trailer set up so that they could go out into the community and deliver hot meals and food parcels to people who would not be able to get to the clinic themselves. So a lot of the people who are housebound for various reasons and would take food parcels out to them, and some of the more remote primary schools where they may not get a hot meal in the day, and they'd go out with these enormous vats of sort of rice and beans and chicken and meat and veggies, and give everybody a really delicious hot meal. And we were delighted to raise nearly £5,000 last year to support that project, thanks to the Brave the Shave, which one of our fantastic supporters did, and shaved all of his hair off. And our chairman decided that he wouldn't be outdone, and so he decided to do it too. And that's how we smashed the 5,000 barrier.
Wow. Well, everyone is worried about having their hair cut during the coronavirus. You can just actually shave your hair off and do something amazing.
And do something for charity. Absolutely, absolutely. I did hesitate though. I mean, it means a lot to me, but I don't think I'm quite ready to go the whole shebang.
I've done that once. I went to a UB40 concert in the early 90s, and of course we didn't get very many bands in South Africa because they were banned. The bands were banned. Yeah. And I thought I was going to do something really cool, so I shaved my head with a number 2 shears, and I didn't think that I was close to my graduation. So all my graduation pictures when I graduated are no hair. We are Brilliant. Such idiots sometimes.
That's a great story though. Yeah.
Do you find that HIV is still playing a big role in the work that you're doing in KwaZulu-Natal?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. It really hasn't gone away. I mean, not only in terms of sort of people's health, but also the stigma. The stigma really hasn't gone away. It's getting better, but one of our particular projects is the Hillcrest AIDS Centre Trust. They have a respite unit, and they are increasingly seeing people who have HIV positive status, and they may be on their antiretrovirals, and the South African government has done an amazing job in actually getting that medication out, but people still default, and they default for a number of reasons. Sometimes it's circumstance, because they don't have enough money for food and also to get transport to get to the clinic. Sometimes because they have to take the drugs with food. They don't take them because they just make them feel so ill if they haven't eaten, and a variety of other reasons. But increasingly they're seeing people who are co-infected with cancer or TB, and cancer is becoming a very big problem across South Africa, but particularly in KwaZulu-Natal, because of the lack of very strong diagnostic capability, whether it's equipment or whether it's the equipment's there, but it's just people who have been trained to use it. But what Hillcrest do, as well as running this amazingly loving and compassionate respite centre, is they also have a very strong peer education programme, and they work with secondary schools in the area, and also the older years of primary school, to talk about how they can avoid contracting HIV through a series. It's called Goals for Life, and it's a series of sort of games and exercises loosely based around football, but it's a fun way of getting across a very serious message to children at quite a young age, because of course particularly young girls are very vulnerable to contracting HIV if they feel coerced into having sexual relations particularly with an older partner.
Yeah, it seems like there's so much to do. It's almost, where do we start? It just becomes so sometimes a little bit overwhelming. But what if people are listening to you, they're thinking, that's not an African accent. So you were born on the Isle of Wight, and then you spent your formative years in Africa and moved back to the UK as a teenager.
Yeah.
But what about Africa remained alive for you that eventually took you from a financial services career into working with a charity, and specifically an African charity?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Africa. My very first day at school was in Zambia. My father was an engineer, and in the 60s, as you know, people will know, very many of the African countries gained their independence across that decade. And so there was a lot of work for people to go from the UK and various other parts of the world to help to get those newly independent countries fully up to speed with various different professions, and engineering was one of them. So we went quite early in that process. We all up sticks, as it were, and went to Africa. So all of my primary education was in Africa. And it's funny, last night when I knew I was going to do this, it was, I don't know if I was dreaming or remembering or dream remembering, but loads of stories of my childhood came back to me through the night. And you know, it never really left me. And my brother and I were both devastated when we left Africa. We lived in Zambia first of all, and then we went to Botswana, and then we finally, the last African country we lived in was Zimbabwe. But what in particular drew me, and has always been my big anchor to Africa, was when we lived in Botswana. I had very bad problems with my ears, and really very bad earache, and was really quite unwell. And eventually my parents found out that there was a mission hospital that was run by the Seventh Day Adventists, and that mission hospital had a fantastic doctor who treated me over the course of a number of months, and you know, to try and help to alleviate the pain and to avoid further damage to my ears. But eventually he told my parents that there was really nothing more that he could do, but he had heard that there was an amazing ear, nose and throat specialist who was working in Johannesburg. And so my parents were able to find this guy and get an appointment for me. And I remember my dad drove me down to Joburg, and I had my operation, and that saved my hearing. And I've never forgotten that, and I've never forgotten the fact that, you know, I feel like, it sounds a bit trite to say I have a debt of gratitude, but I do, and I genuinely always felt that at some point in my life I wanted to give something back to Africa, because I felt that Africa had not only given me the most amazing childhood and some wonderful memories, but actually Africa had given me my hearing too. And you know, that was why I always had it in my game plan. I thought it would happen once I'd retired and my children had grown up. And you know, kind of thought that would be something that I would do in, you know, hopefully an active retirement. But then a number of years ago, I decided that I wanted to do some volunteering in my local community. So I got in touch with a local volunteering organisation, and one of the options was Goodwill and Growth for Africa. And I thought, wow, I didn't even know there was an international development charity in Stratford upon Avon, of all places. So I got in touch with them, and I started volunteering with them. Initially just using my professional skills, as you mentioned. I'm a finance professional, so I helped them set up a pension scheme and, you know, those sorts of things, and then started helping with fundraising and helping out at events. And then late in 2018, the incumbent director told me that she was going to relocate to Yorkshire, and that there would therefore be a vacancy. And I thought, right, what do I do? What do I do? And so after a lot of, you know, soul searching, thinking about it, I thought, you know what, if I do not apply for this job, I will never forgive myself. And, you know, I knew that I'd be gutted if I saw somebody coming into the job and thought, oh, I didn't even try. So I threw my hat into the ring, and thankfully I was offered the role. And so on this 2nd of January 2019, I started work, and on the 17th, I flew out to Africa for the first time in 30 years.
Wow.
And when I landed in Durban, I cried like a baby.
It's like going home, isn't it? It's like going home. It when it touches you, and I think people will only understand this if they have a connection with Africa, that no matter where we are in the world, there is something about Africa that if you've had a connection with it, it will always be in your heart. And um, and that's why I think it's so wonderful that the universe has put you in that direction so that you can use your professional skills, and you're not, necessarily in a retired capacity now. You're still, active in your community and you're doing things. But on that note, you did mention that you have, an older demographic that is really involved in your charity and doing amazing things. But where you feel there is a real gap is with the younger generation. And what can we do, or how can you, what opportunities do you think there are for young people to get involved in charity work?
Absolutely, and and I'll say now that we have an amazing donor base, and so many of our donors have been very, very loyal to us for a number of years, and it's an absolute joy. And so many of them have similar connections with Africa to my parents, for example, having worked and lived there. But yeah, absolutely, getting younger people involved is absolutely critical to keep this charity alive, because the need, as we mentioned, is absolutely still there. And I know some people can feel a little bit fatigued by the constant ask and the constant presentation of saying, this or that or the other charity needs something. But I think what working with a small project, or sorry, excuse me, a small charity like Gaga can do for people is it means that you will get really involved really quickly, and it's a very personal thing. So for younger people, we're trying to look at ways that we can get school children involved. So I'll go into schools and talk to children about it. We've had a number of primary schools where they have exchanged letters with children who are in a similar age group in Africa, and that's just amazing, because suddenly they realize that actually these children are just like them. They like to play football, they like sweeties, they like to braid their hair, or they like to have a pet at home or something like that. So that is a wonderful thing to let children know. For the older age groups, we have in the past worked with universities, and a couple of years ago the charity took out a group of volunteers from university to work on a nutrition program. And that's always something that is, if anybody is interested in doing some volunteering in Africa, we're always very, very happy for people to come along with us when we do our monitoring and evaluation trips. And it's not a holiday. You do have to self-fund, but what you get out of it is immeasurable. In fact, my own son came out in October. I was out in October for best part of over a month actually, and he came out for the October half term, and he did a week's volunteering at 1,000 Hills Community Helpers, and he absolutely loved it, and it was such a formative experience for him. But when you put that into context against the cost of the airfare, or the cost of self-funding the trip, it's just immeasurable. So we're very, very keen to hear from people who are interested in doing that, or interested in fundraising for us by doing challenge events, or maybe just something with their own friends. In the world of Zoom now, people are doing cocktail nights, or coffee mornings, or whatever, on Zoom, socially distanced, and raising money for charity. So it's
Wow.
wonderful to do that.
It's nice and creative. We are bombarded in the news with what's happening in Africa, but it seems to be, it's civil war, it's corruption, misappropriation of funds, there's natural disasters, disease, political instability. And I know that people are sometimes a little bit concerned when they donate money about how it's being used. And I know that you've got some really great systems in place. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we are a small charity, and we only have, I'm the only employed person, so we have a team of volunteers who help me to achieve what I achieve in the UK, and we have a very active board of trustees as well, who are also very supportive. But we do not spend a great deal of money on administration. What we do spend, we try to spend very wisely, and we try to see it as an investment in the work that we do. So we have a system whereby we are only working with trusted projects. And so when we do send money out, but we send it out to trusted projects. And for our university students, we don't send the money directly to the student. Once they have their place at university, we get in touch with the university, and the money for their fees, and also if they have university accommodation that we're funding as well, will go straight to the university. So we are absolutely certain that that money is being used for the purpose of their education. We also have very, very close links and close monitoring, and we have a number of people who we trust out in South Africa. One in particular is a lady who has been associated with Gaga for nearly, well, in fact, the entire time that Gaga has been in existence. She was part of an orphanage, which was the sort of the roots of the charity, if you like, one of the first projects that the charity raised money for. And she is our eyes and ears on the ground. She is the one who, if we have a student who comes to us and asks us if we will fund their education, they have to get past pretty fast. That's all I'm going to say. She will interview them. She will make sure that they, she will look at their credentials. She'll look at their results from their matric. She'll make sure that their school record is good, and she will also look into the family and make sure that that we are helping those students who genuinely have nowhere else to turn to, and that's invaluable.
Absolutely, absolutely. So do you because there's the difficulty when you have a charity, because you've got these projects running and you could either just spend a lot of time on those projects and grow those, or are you consciously looking for other projects?
Well, if 6 months ago, I think I would have said to you, we're consciously looking for other projects. But of course, COVID-19 has come along. And so the projects that we have had to diversify somewhat, in that, for example, they've had to maybe slightly change what they're doing, particularly the healthcare projects. And then the food insecurity crisis that has followed the lockdown in South Africa has also given rise to some extra problems. So Hillcrest Aid Centre Trust, for example, are doing a feeding scheme now as well to try and support communities deep in the valley. So at the moment, our focus is very much on making sure that the communities and the individuals that we're currently committed to support, we can carry on supporting. We're really fortunate in that our income has not been as badly impacted as a lot of charities. But of course, the one thing that we have missed out on so far this year is our community fundraising and our face-to-face events. So we would normally be very present at Fates and the Stratford-upon-Avon River Festival and various other festivals in the area, which is fantastic for awareness, but also for raising cash, because we sell beadwork and we sell various other things as well. But we haven't been able to do those things. So at the moment, we just want to keep everything on a steady, even keel, make sure that we can see through our commitments. But that said, we're always interested to hear about other projects, and more, I think, for small charities need to work together and collaborate. There are so many of us in this space, and we're all trying to do wonderful things and amazing things, and I think that there's a benefit in collaboration. So we don't shut the door. In fact, I went to look at 2 projects in October, which are currently funded by another UK organisation, but they're right in the exact area that we work in, and they are absolutely within our mission statement. And there are definitely potential benefits for us working together. So that's something that as we look forward and we look beyond the black hole of COVID, and we look into the next 5-10 years, we will definitely be looking at some other projects.
That's okay. So what then is your African dream in relation to, well, for yourself, and for Gaga and for the continent? Because there is a lot of work to be done. Although Africa is going through an incredible renaissance and there's wonderful creativity and incredible projects and inspirational opportunities available, what is your ultimate African dream?
I want Africa to be the continent it should be. You know, it is an amazing continent, amazing people, fantastic wealth of mineral wealth, of beautiful, you know, sort of capacity and capability for feeding the world. I mean, you know, many parts of Africa could be the world's larder. I mean, you know, it is just such a diverse continent, and it has so much scope, and you know, I would wish that everybody could experience the openness and the space and the joy of Africa, most especially the people who live there, who, you know, often do not, you know, live on the margins of their own society, in their own country, in their own lands, and that can't be right. And, you know, let's hope for you know, free or at least affordable education in Africa, across Africa. That's where it's got to start, and then let those children build their own world and their country and influence all of us.
Yeah, and for generations to come as well. You know,
Yeah.
Vicky Sampson said in My African Dream, you know, she said that there is a new tomorrow. And I think that's what keeps a lot of the inspiration going, that we can make a difference. No matter where we are, the smallest little difference can have a huge impact. So how can people get in touch with you, Claire, if they want to help, or if they want to donate, even if it's a small amount, a large amount, whatever it is that they can help? How can they get hold of you?
Absolutely. Well, you can find us at gaga-uk.org. So just have a look up Goodwill and Growth for Africa, or Gaga. Once you get past Lady Gaga, you should find us.
You should get her on board. I'm sure she'd be a great ambassador.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so we have a website. We're very active on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and just recently on LinkedIn as well. So you can find us on any of those digital media channels, or you can just email us at info@gaga-uk.org, and we'll get in touch with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for the work that you're doing, and the impact that you're having on so many people. And we really appreciate you joining us today. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for giving me the chance to talk about everything we do, and the wonderful people out there. Thank you.
No problem. No problem at all.